The second night I was in town, I went to the other cafe because Jim had told me about it, and I was in love. I mean, the crowd was so great, and you know, I'm a Boston comic originally, but I never related to the Boston crowds the way I did the San Francisco crowds. I mean, part of it is you're never very good in the place you start out. You know, they always remember that you suck.
Yes.
But there was also just something, and it wasn't anything by design. It wasn't like, oh, I was so clever that I worked it out. It was, I mean, I got off that bus on the right day, and I was the right age, and I was in the right place, and I went to the right club. And it's my favorite club ever. And
did you audition first and then took the job there?
No, I came on an open mic night. And so, yeah. And,
yes.
And actually, the main way that I learned to do what I think I now do is I was lucky enough to, they would hire me to MC the open mic nights. And back then, those nights went on forever.
Yes.
I mean, we'd start the show at, 8 o'clock, and sometimes not, whatever time the bars closed, 1:32. I mean, I can remember there being 3 people, Richard Snow and my old great friend, Joe Campiolo. I remember one night, and there was like 1 audience member. And just the poor audience member, we just hammered them. We wouldn't let them go. We just kept doing our thing. It was so much fun.
And if we went to the bathroom, you'd follow them in there? With
oh, man, we were relentless. And in fact, I did get hired to work behind the counter at the other cafe. But I was very particular about, I had no money. And I was very particular about it. I told them, I didn't want anybody to think of me. I didn't want them to think that I worked behind the, I wanted them to think of me as a comic.
Yes.
And so I wouldn't do any night shifts. I only did the morning.
Oh.
And it was really helpful because I would come in the morning and I would hear the waitresses complain about the comics the night before. And I heard what they didn't like. And I realized that, man, if you can appeal to a waitress who has to listen to this direct night after night after night, then you're pretty good.
Right.
So I started really paying attention to the criticisms of the waitresses. And after that, I took pride for many years of working clubs, making sure I went over to the waitresses.
And when you say you were behind the counter, what were you doing?
Dishwashing, making burritos. But, cash register was a small space.
Yes.
So you kind of had to do everything. And, none of it particularly well. They always used to say that I was a little bit slow. But I think it was quality work.
Do you remember back, though, to your early years at the other cafe, particularly of high or maybe not so high moments on stage?
Oh, you know what? I'm telling you, I don't remember a bad moment on the other cafe stage. And again, it wasn't because I was such a genius. There was a matching, there was a serendipity about it that just, worked. I was often following people like my great and brilliant friend Joe Campiolo, who, just had the audience in the right place. They were smart crowds. Yeah. They were thrilled to be there because they didn't have any money either. So they were there on nights when, this is before people worried with the silly drink minimum thing and all that. This is when, you can come in the other cafe back then for $1 and sit there all night, not even order drinks. Yeah. And then they, slowly but surely they started to change and said, well, now, you have to do this and you have to do that to come in once it was such a popular thing that they could kind of pick and choose. But early on, I think that was one of the great things. And to this day, I bump into people all around the country who say, man, I used to see you at the other cafe. And we all have, audience members and performers have such a special feeling for those times. One night I took the whole crowd across the street with me. To Joe Campiolo he was on the bill. I think maybe he was emceeing for me. And he went across the street to Bradley's to have a drink. And it was, I'd been on for a while. I thought it was time to, get off, and Joe was nowhere to be found. So I said to the audience, stand up. And it took the entire audience across the street to Bradley's. And Joe looks up from his drink, and there we all were. And I said, Joe, what are you doing? He's a very brilliant. I'm hoping he stops by tonight. I try to reach him. Brilliant guy, that guy.
So you continued your routine across the street. It was like a massive intervention group.
It kind of was, actually, yeah. Because, they only served beer and wine at the other, and he wanted the hard stuff. So he had to go across to Bradley's. And I actually did. I mean, I kept the kind of pace and rhythm the entire way across.